What's up guys, my name is Ace, and I know I'm going against the grain here a little bit, but lately, I've actually been having the most fun I've had in Black Ops 6 since the launch window of the game. And there is a very specific reason for this, and this is the TMNT Moshpit game mode. Which unfortunately, after recording this video, I noticed they just removed it and replaced it with the Endurance Moshpit playlist. I kind of thought this TMNT Moshpit would last until the end of the TMNT event, but it looks like that's not the case. And based off of just a couple matches of Endurance Moshpit, it doesn't appear to have the same characteristics that I'm going to be talking about with this TMNT Moshpit playlist, unfortunately. But for the rest of the video, just keep in mind when I was recording this, the Moshpit was live, and I was assuming it would be live at least for another week. So that's unfortunate, but I suspect we'll be seeing similar modes like this with similar characteristics for future events. Now, this is something I've mentioned in passing, but I wanted to make a dedicated video on this and really spread the word because, like I said, I've been having a lot of fun with this, and I think a lot of people have overlooked this and are potentially missing out on a great experience. And right up front, the reason I feel I've been having such a good time in this mode, it's not because of the mode itself, it's not because of the turtle abilities or the turtle theme or anything behind it. It's the fact that, as far as I can tell, there is little to no skill-based matchmaking in this particular game mode. Now, interestingly, I felt this exact same way about Pentathlon when that was active, and I know many others were talking about that as well. It seemed like it was just such an easy mode compared to the others. There was a much better mix of players. And interestingly, with that mode, as well as the TMNT Moshpit mode, at least from what I remember, and I know this is the case with the TMNT mode, it doesn't actually contribute to your stats at all. So your kills and deaths and stuff, they don't show up on the combat record. Wins and losses, they don't show up on the combat record. And therefore, I believe they've been treating these modes exactly the same. And it's interesting because they're both tied in with the similar style of event as well. So I don't think this is a coincidence. I truly feel there is very little, if any, skill-based matchmaking in this mode based on my experience, because that experience has been very mixed and basically what I would expect if there were little to no SBMM. So what this means is, while playing through this mode, I still get the odd tough match here or there. I still run into parties from time to time. I'm not saying it's just bot lobbies game after game after game or anything, but for the most part, it's a pretty good mix of players in each lobby and on each team. And I've really started to notice trends while I've been playing. Typically on the enemy team, there's one or two players that I would consider to be good players that I really have to be aware of because they're the big threats in the match. Then there's usually a couple average players where, as long as I'm on my game, I've got no problem beating them, but I can't play too sloppy against them because they're not horrible. And then there's usually that one or two people on the other team that are just not very confident at the game, we'll say. I don't want to be too mean, but they're not very good at the game. And this is the exact sort of team composition you'd expect to see if there were no skill-based matchmaking present. And I've found this to be extremely refreshing because there's so much variety, not only from a game-to-game basis, but also on a gunfight-to-gunfight basis. Instead of most of my enemies playing in a very similar and very optimized way, because they're all higher skilled players, I started to notice different patterns of behavior with different players. And I noticed while playing this, I'm naturally getting that feeling of, okay, I need to watch out for this guy with this skin because he's their good player. And I actually naturally categorize players as I'm playing in this mode, and I make decisions with my gameplay accordingly when I run into that skin. And it's weird because I feel like that's a skill that's being sort of reawoken as I'm playing this. That's how I used to play Call of Duty back in the day, and that was actually a big part of the gameplay experience, was as you get into a match, as you're playing through a match, you start to categorize different players and their play styles and their skill levels, and you would actually adjust your gameplay accordingly. But in recent years, well, there's still been a little bit of that, of course. Like, not everybody is literally just clones of each other. There's been a lot less variety mixed in there, and in my experience at least, most players play in a fairly similar way, and there's at least a lot less variety in general play styles. So that variety has been really refreshing. Also, on average, over several hours of gameplay time in this mode, I actually felt like my skill level was being reflected in my overall performance in the match, while playing solo, which is the big key as well. Now, like I said, sure, there'd be some tough matches mixed in there, and the team balancing is absolutely still present. So there were situations where I was performing really well, but my team was just doing horrible and feeding the enemy team streaks, and we were still losing despite the fact that it felt like I was dominating the enemy team as an individual. But I found even with that, the overall experience felt much more organic to me, and I really didn't mind those tougher matches because it just felt like a random challenge that would pop up from time to time, and it really didn't feel like there was a pattern forming where that was being determined algorithmically. It's not like those matches would happen consistently after I performed really well in my previous match. It was just sort of the odd random game here or there that would pop up that would be a little more difficult. And circling back a little bit, a key thing that I mentioned there is the fact that I've been playing this solo and enjoying my experience playing solo. And the reason that's so interesting is the solo experience in regular game modes in Black Ops 6, at least in my experience, is awful. I absolutely hate playing solo in this game. And that's why in the vast majority of gameplays you see on this channel, you'll notice I'm playing with a full party. And that's just something I've naturally adapted to with this modern matchmaking system. I've found that if I do open up my lobbies while I'm streaming and just let any viewer that wants to join the game, then that suddenly alleviates a lot of the frustration with the modern COD matchmaking, especially the team balancing part of that. It's nice to know that they can't just put the worst 5 players in the lobby on my team, and I've always got at least some players that I can count on. Now, while that works, and it definitely alleviates some of the problems, and it has allowed me to enjoy the game much more than I would if I were playing solo, it also comes with its downsides, like being too dominant as a team to the point where the enemies just leave the game partway through, or you end up just naturally spawn trapping them, like without even trying to. Like, it's not like we coordinate and are communicating or anything. It's just naturally, if you're a dominant team and you know that flipping the spawns is detrimental, you're gonna end up spawn trapping the enemy players really hard, and that can honestly get quite boring. And what that's meant for Black Ops 6 is I either play solo and have a horrible experience where I just feel like I'm playing in a tournament every single match, or in the matches where it does seem like there's a better mix of players, all of the bad players seem to end up on my team while I'm fighting against reasonably competent players on the enemy team that are just dominating my teammates, and I might be able to get a bit of an upper hand on them overall, but not enough to actually carry the team. Or I party up, which definitely feels better, but it comes with its own downsides and it can get quite boring. So with that in mind, this is why I've been feeling the TMNT Moshpit has been so refreshing for me. I've been able to play this mode consistently as a solo player and find a lot more overall success. And I feel like my skill level is actually shining through and matches my in-game performance. And another great thing about this is I've actually found myself branching out and using some of the worst weapons as well and leveling those up and working on some of my camos on them and not really feeling like I'm being punished for doing so. I don't have to effectively like soft reverse boost myself by doing that for a few games before the matchmaking system places me in lobbies where I can reasonably get kills with that bad setup. I can just hop in and do that for a game, and then the next game, if I want, I can switch to a meta gun and just dominate for a match. And I don't feel like one match had an effect on the other one. So going forward, I hope they continue to go this route with these limited time modes, having little to no apparent SBMM present, because it's been such a refreshing change of pace to actually go into the game playing solo, using a variety of weapons, and experiencing a variety of different playstyles and gameplay types on a match-to-match basis and a gunfight-to-gunfight basis. And I am curious to know if this is something they've done intentionally with these modes, where maybe they've decided, you know what, with these limited time modes, let's tone back that SBMM and give them something, but we're not going to label it as no SBMM, because as soon as you label it as no SBMM, then that's of course going to attract all of the players looking to avoid SBMM, which are going to be the higher skill players, and the lower skill players, they probably don't even know what SBMM means, or even if they do, they'll find out very quickly playing that mode that all of the pub stompers are there, and they're going to have a far worse experience than if they were just playing the regular modes. So I don't really know if this is intentional or not, but I would love to see them continue this going forward. It's been such a great change of pace. And another big thing I wanted to tag on here, since it was part of the topic of this video, and who knows, maybe down the road, if it still doesn't come, I might make a dedicated video on this in the future. I would still love to see a mercenary mosh pit mode come to the game. I think this would be huge for the gameplay experience. And just for those that aren't aware, mercenary means solos only in Call of Duty. We've seen these playlists in the past, back in the day, and it makes solo play in Call of Duty so much more enjoyable because you literally never have to worry about running into a party. And therefore, you generally see far more balanced matches because they can actually balance the teams appropriately because there's no parties mixed in to throw all of that off. And even if they have the current SBMM present in that mercenary mosh pit mode, I still think it would be a huge relief to just not have to worry about playing against parties. And I would likely play that mode quite a bit, again, even if the standard matchmaking is in place for that mode. But with that, that's pretty much going to wrap it up today's video, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. For those of you that have played the TMNT Moshpit mode a decent amount, what has your experience been like? Has it been similar to mine, where it seems like there's a pretty good mix of lobbies, and it doesn't feel like your performance in the match before has a big impact on the next match that you play? Or not? Do you think I'm just crazy here and I'm way off, and the SBMM is actually exactly the same, and I'm just hallucinating here? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.